Greetings YouTubers, AtariLeaf here with a review of the Atari 8-bit version of Mr.Doo. One of the reasons I love this game is that you use a simple ball as your weapon. Although I don't know how this could hurt anybody. You'd have to be really weak and pathetic to get hurt by a ball. Oh. Mr.Doo, Universal's 1982 answer to Namco's Dig Dug. Since both games came out relatively close to each other in 1982, it's hard to determine if Mr.Doo is actually a ripoff of Dig Dug, but some say that Dig Dug had been shown at trade shows as early as 1981, fueling speculation that Universal did indeed borrow elements of Dig Dug for Mr.Doo. There's also debate among retro gaming enthusiasts about which one is better. But even though I love and enjoy both, I come down firmly on the side of Mr.Doo. Strangely enough, my first encounter with Mr.Doo wasn't even in the arcade, but on the ColecoVision back in 1983, when on a family vacation to a cottage resort, where there was a ColecoVision in the lobby for guests to use, and use it I certainly did. And of the handful of games available, I played Mr.Doo the most. So how does this Atari 8-bit version of Mr.Doo stack up? Very well, actually. In fact, it might replace the ColecoVision version as my favorite from that era. There are also other versions, such as the Game Boy and Super Nintendo versions, which are also excellent. There's even a Neo Geo updated version that looks very bizarre. So what is the premise of the game? You control a circus clown who digs in the dirt, collecting giant cherries, throwing a bouncing ball around to kill underground monsters, dropping apples on the same underground monsters, while occasionally collecting diamonds that sometimes appear from said apples, and spelling the word extra from the dead carcasses of other underground monsters with giant letters in their bodies. I'd say some programmer went on one heck of a bender while designing this game. But hey, who am I to complain? It works. One of the things that makes me appreciate Mr.Doo over Dig Dug is the variety in how you can clear a board. You can collect all the cherries, eliminate all the monsters, spell the word extra by defeating the alpha monster, or collect a diamond that sometimes appears from fallen apples. And as I mentioned in my painful introduction, the idea of a bouncing ball as a weapon is just so much fun. Just don't use it too much, as each throw takes longer to reset the ball back to you, which leaves you vulnerable. There's also a lot of strategy in how you play the game. For instance, don't just throw the ball randomly, because if it doesn't hit a monster or come back to you, you are vulnerable to a monster attack. Use the apples instead by setting traps via long vertical tunnels to drop on the unsuspecting monsters. And keep an eye out for the alpha monster, as you'll need all the extra Mr.Doos you can get. The Atari 8-bit computer version is extremely faithful to the original arcade game, and is a very solid port. The music, sound effects, and graphics are great and mimic the arcade original as closely as is possible on Atari 8-bit computers, and the computer AI is challenging without being overly frustrating. After being wholly disappointed with the Atari 2600 version of Mr.Doo, this version scratches me where I itch. Mr.Doo is a fun game, like really fun. I don't know why exactly, I can't put my finger on it, but it's unique, and certainly unique enough that while you can compare it to Dig Dug or call it a ripoff, it stands on its own as a solid game that deserves its place in arcade history. And this port for the Atari 8-bit computers is easily my favorite from that early 80s era. Yes, even more than the ColecoVision. It's a really well balanced and fun port that injects all the best qualities of a great arcade game into it. So put on your clown suit, grab your Powerball, no, not the lottery, that wouldn't make any sense, and go collect some cherries because that's what well-adjusted people do. I highly recommend this great port of a great arcade game. The game originally came on disc, which is hard to find, but with modern flash carts, it's easy to get the game ROM and still play it on real hardware. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to put an ice pack on the large welt forming on the side of my head. This is AtariLeaf, thanks for watching, and have a great day.